For quite a while now, Jen and I have been working to help student athletes overcome performance anxiety. Now, this is something we both experience in our athletic careers and beyond because it affects not just us, not just most people in athletics, but also in other areas of their life too. Now, today I'm going to talk about specifically how I help young athletes overcome performance anxiety, how I go about that, and hopefully you can get a better understanding of it yourself. Now, performance anxiety is essentially created because of two reasons. One, we have the ability to imagine. We imagine a future we don't want to happen, and we can feel anxious about it. And two, we have the ability of self-reflexivity, which is the ability to think about our thoughts. So we can think of a future we don't want, and then we can bring a thought or a feeling of fear to that thought, to that imagined thought. So the performance anxiety is essentially imagining a future you do not want and bringing a state of fear to that future. Now, it might seem like it's quick, easy fix because you could just say, well, focus on what you do want instead. Now, that's a great bit of advice. Focus on what you do want in the future instead. That's a fantastic thing. And I do recommend doing that, to think about what it is I do want and to focus on that. But it is a bit more complex than that when you get into really deep fears about making mistakes and other performance anxiety causes. And let me show you why. Now, this little model here, and excuse my amazing handwriting and artwork, this little model is a model that comes from Dr. Michael Hall, and it's called the Matrix model. And this is a little attempt at creating that. But essentially, all it is to explain to you how the performance anxiety is created and how I've noticed it being created a lot in these young athletes. And this is how I go about helping kids and all people of all ages overcome that performance anxiety, because we all do it the same way. So we've got the first thought of soccer here, okay? So this might be they're going to soccer tomorrow to play a game and they feel performance anxiety. Now, at first glance, you would think, well, they just feel they're just playing soccer. You've done this a million times. Why are you anxious about it? Shouldn't be an issue. But what happens over time is we build up layers of meanings around different concepts and different areas, and these meanings are what eventually come down to cause this state of performance anxiety. And I'll show you a little bit deeper. So it's very common for young student athletes to have the fear of making mistakes. So it's not just I think about soccer and I get performance anxiety. Maybe that is what it is on the conscious level, but what's going on in the deeper frames of their mind is something more like this. What do you believe about soccer that makes you feel anxious? Okay, so that's a very specific question. And what that question does, it gets up into the frames of the person's mind. And they might say something like, well, soccer, I make mistakes. I make mistakes. Okay, so you believe that soccer, you're going to go and make mistakes. Yeah, well, I might make mistakes. Very common. Cool. Well, for me, what do I believe about mistakes? Well, I think mistakes are a part of the learning process, that I can learn from mistakes. So for me, mistakes feel good. So if I was asking this person, what does mistakes mean to you? What do you believe about mistakes that make it so bad? And this person might say, well, mistakes mean I let the whole team down. So I let the whole team down. Okay, so I'm starting to see why you might feel a little anxious. Okay, so let's say you do let the whole team down when you make a mistake. You let the whole team down when you make one mistake. Okay, or a few mistakes. So you can see how it's locking in. You're not allowed to make mistakes. Okay, so what do you believe about letting the whole team down? Well, no one will like me. including the coach, for example. No one will like me, including the coach. So it's not just about mistakes. Now it's about letting the whole team down and not being liked by anyone, including the coach. Okay. So let's say that's true. And let's say that happened and no one did like you and including the coach. Well, what do you believe about that? What's the significance of that? Okay. They might say, well, I'm going to get put down a grade. And if I go down a grade, I won't get selected for Division 1 soccer. Okay. Now it's getting more and more. There's more behind this. It's not just I'm playing a game tomorrow. So cool. So let's say you do go down a grade and you don't get selected for Division 1 college soccer. Okay, well, what's the significance of that? Why is that so bad? What do you believe about that? Well, if I don't get to Division 1 soccer, that's been my goal I've been training for years. So my life will be pointless. Wow. Okay, so we're getting pretty high up here now. Deep into the person's frames of mind, the meanings they've layered to this situation of soccer. Now you can see this person is going to play soccer. They love soccer. And this is a common example, by the way. They love soccer. But when they think about soccer, they've layered these meanings in their mind, which cause them to run through them thoughts. These are unconscious a lot of the time, by the way. And it brings that back down to performance anxiety. They think about, I've got soccer tomorrow. What if mistakes? I'll let the whole team down. And it's this unconscious spasm of thoughts and meanings. And it's real. It's real to them. Okay. Now, this is how it's often created. This is how I go about going into their frames of mind, the meanings they're bringing to the concepts, and then I have a process of clearing this away so they're not feeling this anymore. But essentially, this is how performance anxiety is created. This is how I go about helping student athletes with performance anxiety. And yeah, and I hope you found this valuable and gives you a different perspective. So I hope you now have a better understanding of how performance anxiety is created. And I wish you all the best in your future. And I'll see you in the next video.